In Acts chapter 22, the Apostle Paul tells a crowd of angry Jews how he went from being a zealous persecutor of Christians to being one of their most influential leaders. His story reveals four aspects of the gospel of grace that are relevant for us today. First, grace is undeserved. Paul did not earn God's favor by being a good person. He was a bad person who deserved God's judgment. He was an enemy of God and his people. He hunted down Christians, arrested them, imprisoned them, and even killed them. He did this not only in Jerusalem, but also in other cities, with the approval of the Jewish authorities. But God did not treat him as he deserved. God treated him with mercy and love. God chose him and called him by name. God revealed himself to him and spoke to him. God forgave him and cleansed him. God transformed him and commissioned him. This is grace, God's unmerited favor to sinners. Grace is not something we earn or achieve or merit. Grace is something we receive and accept and enjoy. Grace is not a reward. Grace is a gift. Second, grace is powerful. Paul did not change because he was weak or helpless or needy. He changed because God changed him by his power and presence. God confronted him with his sin and guilt. God humbled him with his light and voice. God blinded him with his glory and grace. God healed him with the truth of the gospel of Jesus. This is grace, God's transforming power in sinners. Grace is not something that leaves us as we are or makes us slightly better. Grace is something that makes us new and completely different. Grace is not an improvement. Grace is a new creation. Third, grace is purposeful. Paul did not follow God because he was lost or confused or aimless. He followed God because God gave him a new direction and mission. God showed him his will and plan. God sent him to the Gentiles and the world. God made him a witness and an apostle. This is grace, God's sovereign purpose for sinners. Grace is not something that has no goal or aim or end. Grace is something that has a clear and glorious objective and outcome. Grace is not an option. Grace is a calling. Fourth, grace is costly. Paul did not suffer for God because he was foolish or reckless. He suffered for God because he loved him and obeyed him. He faced rejection and hostility from his own people and culture. He endured persecution and imprisonment from the authorities and powers. He suffered beatings and stonings from the enemies of the gospel. But he did not regret or resent his sufferings. He rejoiced in them and counted them as gain. He saw them as sharing in Christ's sufferings and glory. He endured them for Christ's sake and love. This is grace, God's costly love for sinners. Grace is not something that comes cheap or free or easy. Grace is something that costs everything and demands everything and gives everything. Grace is not a cushion. grace is a cross. These are some of the lessons we can learn from Paul's story in Acts chapter 22. Grace is undeserved, powerful, purposeful, and costly.